Good morning. My name is Gidon Bromberg and I'm the Israeli co-director of EcoPeace Middle East. EcoPeace Middle East is an amazing organization of Israelis, Palestinians and Jordanians working together for our environment, for peace in our troubled region. When I accepted the invitation to speak at this really important event today, I was absolutely adamant that nothing would take me away. This was my number one priority. Ironically, I received an invitation to speak on the topic we're talking about today before the UN Security Council in New York. And clearly, I could not say no. And therefore, I've had to do this tape, this video in advance to send a message to you from New York, from the Security Council, that everything you're deliberating on today is of extreme importance, that you should be incredibly proud of yourself, as perhaps the very first time deliberating as a UN model event on water, on climate change and its implications for the environment and security. When I look at the different chapters, the different committee topics that you'll be covering, women and water, water and health, the Gaza water crisis, climate change, climate refugees, transboundary water issues on the Nile, on the Mekong, and on the Jordan River, I really cannot think of a more important and relevant set of issues that speak to our common future. Just 1.5 hours south of where you are in Netanya, there are 2 million people that have run out of drinking water. The Gaza Crisis Working Group and no doubt the Gaza Refugee Group will delve into that issue more deeply. But all of us need to be concerned as to what's happening just an hour and a half drive south of us. When 2 million people run out of water, when the sewerage of 2 million people contaminate their own groundwater and also flow out to the Mediterranean and pollute Palestinian beaches in Gaza and Israeli beaches up the coast, then we have to understand that we can't disengage from a shared environment. That whole coastline, whether we're Egyptian, Palestinian, Israeli or Lebanese further north, what our neighbor does impacts us, and what we do impacts our neighbor. An hour and a half east of Netanya, where you are, is another iconic location, the River Jordan, a river holy to half of humanity, where in the Jewish tradition the Israelites cross to the Promised Land, and for Christians where Jesus is baptized in those waters, and also for Islam where 4 of the companions to the Prophet Muhammad are buried. Despite the iconic value of that river, in our own lifetime, in the last 50 years, we've turned the River Jordan, south of the Sea of Galilee, into little more than a sewage canal. And the Dead Sea, the terminal lake of the Jordan River, has shrunk in size to such an extent that your children might never get to see the Dead Sea. That King Herod, who built that magnificent palace called Masada, would escape the hustle and bustle of Jerusalem in order to look out at the magnificence of the Dead Sea. Yet already today, when you stand on top of Masada, in front of you is dry land. The Middle East is the most water-scarce area in our planet. We have the highest birth rates. We already are suffering from conflicts and round of refugees. And on top of that, we now have climate change. Climate change that speaks to not a 2 degrees increase in temperature that the rest of the world is worried about, but a 4 degrees increase in temperature that we're expecting. That the climate models that were telling us that we're going to see less rainfall, less precipitation by the end of the century, well, we're seeing that now. And we're seeing in some areas up to 30% less rainfall. In fact, over the last 20 years, we've experienced 15 years of drought. That's unparalleled in recorded history. The challenges that we face together are issues that your generation are going to have to solve. And hence, the deliberations that you're leading today are critical to your future. When I was in my 20s, I had the opportunity to do a master's in environmental law at the American University in Washington, D.C. And I never imagined that as a result of my studies, I would spend the rest of my life, the last 30 years, trying to forge cooperation between Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, the rest of the nations of the Middle East, to work together on solving water and cross-border environmental issues. When we look at what's waiting ahead, when we look at the challenge that was unappreciated by climate change when I was completing my studies, we see that these issues are even more important. Our priority, diplomacy issues, that you as young diplomats could also devise a career ahead of you, to use water, to use the environment as an avenue to bring cooperation to our region, to bring forth opportunities of sustainability, to solve the most important questions of your century, of this century. At EcoPeace, we present opportunities to continue to work together. We offer programs of youth water trusteeship. There are stands where you can gain more information about how you can be more involved, continue to be involved. In my closing words, I want to thank you. I want to thank the leadership that has chosen this issue. I want to thank you for investing a month of your time researching the different committee issues that you're going to deliberate on. But most importantly, I want to encourage you to take away from this day true meaning that continues in conversations and further study for the future. Because water is the issue of the century. This is your chance to make a difference, to change the world that we live in, and perhaps to promote cooperation in our troubled Middle East. Toda rabah, mabruk, mazal tov.